Hi, this is Lee Langdon. Today on the podcast, I visit with Tony and Jessica Tate. Tony and Jessica are the shepherding couple in our young adult class on Sundays called Launch. They've been with that class for about 3 years, and we love them. Our young adults love them. If you haven't gotten to know them, this is a great chance to hear their stories individually and then how they met just in time for Valentine's. Of course, we talk about so many other things like their careers, playing basketball, being in musicals. Okay, guys, enjoy our conversation. I hope you enjoy getting to know my good friends, Tony and Jessica Tate. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 8. Welcome to the Young Adult World Podcast. Tony and Jessica Tate, welcome to the Young Adult World Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you guys on. You are the shepherding couple in the Launch class in our young adult ministry. Yeah, how long have you guys been doing that?
2 years, 2.5 years maybe.
Okay, we always start with where we're born. So Jessica, let's start with you. Ladies first. Where were you born?
I was born near Akron, Ohio. Just a kid from Akron. And
isn't Akron where there's like
LeBron James?
Oh, is that where LeBron James is from? I'm thinking
he's always called himself. He's just a kid from Akron.
Oh, okay. So. But there's like a museum or a Hall of Fame or something there, isn't there?
There's
the NFL.
The NFL Hall of Fame is in Canton, which is near Akron.
Okay.
And then there's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that's in Cleveland.
Okay.
So it's a pretty art-rich area.
Your family, when you were born into this family, was it musical? Like, did you guys...
My dad sang in a gospel quartet that traveled around just the tri-state area of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio.
What was it called?
It was called the Glory Land Quartet.
The Glory Land. Mm-hmm. Cool.
And I would travel with him. We would meet other quartets, and they'd sing at gospel meetings, and... my mom did sing when she was younger, and she was an artist, and she still does paint.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. And my brother's an actor and singer, so.
Cool. And it's just you and your brother?
Correct.
Is there paintings in your house that your mom painted?
Yes. Do
you remember going to school? Like, what are some of your earliest memories?
It was an inner city type school that I went to. So there were some students that were not, there were a lot of students not like me. There was just a lot of diversity in my schooling and neighborhood.
One brother.
Correct.
And were you guys close? Did you guys spend time together?
I would say we were 4.5 years apart. I don't know that he would say we were close when we were younger, because my favorite phrase to say to him was, you know, he'd say to me something like, "You're not my mom." And I would say, well, if you didn't act like you needed to, I wouldn't have to be this way. So I wouldn't say we were very close, but we both have fond memories of our childhoods together.
Sure.
We were not permitted to fight a lot. There had to be resolution and peace making. So we didn't spend a lot of time, if we were frustrated with each other, in that angst with one another. I enjoyed succeeding in things and feeling like I was succeeding. I think there was probably some people pleasing. You know, a teacher is pleased that you do well, so you want to do well. What
subject did you thrive in? Would you say, was there one that stood out more than others?
Really, English, literature.
Yeah. Anybody that knows you love to sing.
Yes.
Where did that come from? Where did that start for you?
Well, my dad sang to me every night, and I am told many stories by family that I wanted to entertain at all times. We had a black tile hearth that I wanted to stand on and command attention. I don't remember that really, but the stories seem pretty true, and they track a little bit. I do remember.
You can imagine.
Yeah, I remember coming into a space in my life though where I was often asked to perform at the spur of the moment, and I loathed it. I did not want to do it. And we had the album of Annie the musical, and I played that with the one with Carol Burnett as Miss Hannigan. I played that over and over. And we also had Barbra Streisand, and those were the go-to albums, just laying on the floor in the living room listening over and over, trying to mimic the voices I heard and act out the stories. I think more than singing, I love storytelling with song.
Yeah. So you started getting into musicals at some point. Were you a part of some sort of group outside of school, or was that all at school?
I did not have a great music teacher in elementary school. I think he did the best he could, but we didn't have a lot of opportunity. I did play the flute. I didn't want to do choir when I moved to a different town to be in middle school because I was shy. Well, yeah, I was kind of shy. Middle school is just an awkward time. But I wanted to be in a talent show. And a friend of mine had said, I heard you singing, Jessica. You should be in a talent show. I'm like, no, I don't know. I want to sing this one song by Jack Wagner, who was an actor in a soap opera or something at the time. And you couldn't find the sheet music because, of course, this was the time where you bought the little 45 album if you wanted to hear that particular song. And she said, no, I want you to, Mr. Yossi was the name of the choir director. And she goes, I want you to come talk to the choir director. And I went in and she said, I want Jessica to sing for you, Mr. Yossi. And I sang the song a cappella, and he really lit up and said, you need to sing in the talent show. I'm going to figure out what the accompaniment is, and I will accompany you. And he accompanied me. He figured it out by ear and accompanied me at this talent show, and I was terrified. But it was I think it was sort of that turning point where people who didn't know me in middle school, because I'd been the girl who moved in, kind of quiet, but I wasn't a quiet person. I was just trying to figure out where I fit in 7th grade at this new place. And that kind of made everybody sit up. There was an audition for a musical called On the Town, and I got not a lead role, but a pretty prominent role, the role of Ivy Smith, and that was it, man.
You were sold.
I was done.
Yeah. What were the other high school musicals you were part of? Do you remember?
Yes, I did Sound of Music and My Fair Lady, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and On the Town were the high school musicals.
Yeah. Came time to graduate high school. What did you end up doing?
Well, the plan was to go to Carnegie Mellon and be a musical theater major.
Carnegie Mellon
in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, I think. It's in Pittsburgh. Wow. They have a very still very good.
Yeah.
But I was very young when I graduated. I was a year younger than most, and my mother and dad did not want me to go on to a state university at that age, at 17, and said, if you'll go to a Christian school for 2 years, then then you can go wherever you want. And so I just was looking for the closest 2-year school, which was either at the time OVC, Ohio Valley College, which just recently closed. It was Ohio Valley University, I think, or maybe it stayed college, and Michigan Christian College, which is now Rochester University. And so I went to Michigan Christian College with the anticipation of getting a 2-year degree and then going on to get musical theater.
Yeah.
That's not exactly how it went, though.
What was that like for you? How did you enjoy going to Michigan Christian?
I did. I actually, one of the quartets that my dad's quartet always traveled with, one of the singers and his wife lived up there, and they became kind of my adopted parents. And I had some scholarships to go there, and it was a very small. It was kind of, I called it like going to camp for college because it was small and intimate. And
how many students would have been there?
Oh, I don't even know.
Like 80, 100, 200? 300. Okay, 300.
400.
Yeah, that's awesome. You get to know everybody. Yeah.
And they did have musical opportunities, and we did South Pacific, a musical there. And
you were in a singing group.
I was in a singing group called Autumn.
Yes. Yeah.
And traveled with them. And so there were a lot of musical opportunities. But while I was there, I had learned some stories of peers of mine from high school who had gone on to New York City. And at the time, it was a pretty dangerous place to live. And so a lot of them were not having as good of a experience as... It was just a little scary. And I thought, I don't know that this is the path I want to go. And my voice teacher there had connections at Harding. And I thought maybe music teaching, which I was like, I'm not going to be a teacher. No way, I'm not going to be a teacher. And then I thought immediately, oh, I think I need to be a teacher. I think, or at least I need to prepare and get a degree in something like that I could then put into practice in any city that I would move to.
Tony, let's hear from you. I want to hear about your story now. Tell us where you were born.
I was born in Martin, Tennessee. So all of my life until Jessica and I moved really was spent in West Tennessee.
Wow.
So Martin, Tennessee there's a University of Tennessee at Martin there. So that's where I was born. Both my parents lived in that area.
So Martin, is that like near Knoxville, near Memphis?
No, it's on the other side.
On the
other side of the state.
Oh.
It's on the west side, so it's close to Memphis.
Close to Memphis. Okay, yeah.
Very quickly after I was born, my dad moved around a little bit for a few years, but then by the time I was in third grade, we settled back in Jackson, Tennessee, and that's where my mom still lives today.
Okay.
So we've been there ever since.
Jackson, Tennessee. We have a young adult that was from Jackson, Tennessee.
Olivia Landis.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, she knows my mom because my mom is a bookkeeper at the high school that I went to and that Olivia went to.
That's amazing.
It was a small school, so I could do everything, and I was kind of expected to do everything. So I had a lot of fun. I fell in love with basketball. I loved playing basketball.
Like early on? When did you start?
Third grade.
Oh, wow.
Third grade.
Yeah.
Before that, I had played a lot of soccer, or I guess you could say American football.
Yeah.
But when I got to Jackson, Tennessee, I really started loving basketball. And I just said, I'm not going to do anything else except play basketball. My sophomore year, our team made it to the district finals, our district tournament.
Yeah.
Which was a big deal. We had never made it that far.
Right.
And we thought we were pretty good. And we were playing this team in Nashville, out of Memphis. I will never forget the name, Bishop Byrne. It was a Catholic school. And at tip-off, their team won the tipped it to another team member of his, who threw it to a guy who dunked it on the first play of the game, and it all went downhill from there. So it was not a good night for us.
Yeah.
But we enjoyed it. We loved it. Looking back on it, I don't know that I would do that differently, but it was a good time.
Yeah.
My dad was a CPA, and he had his own practice, so everything, and he was in the Air Force, so everything was very disciplined in our house. I was also, when I wasn't playing basketball, I was part of an academic decathlon team in high school, and so we studied all kinds of subjects. I did enjoy that.
Yeah. You learned a lot about probably a large range of topics.
Wide variety of things.
Yeah, you'd have to.
Mm-hmm.
You have siblings.
I have a younger sister.
Oh, yeah. What's the age difference?
She's about 5 years younger than me, kind of like Jessica and her brother.
Yeah.
She and I are very different in the way that we think about things, in the way that we just, I guess, think and feel about things. It's really interesting, and I've seen this in our children too, how amazing it is you can grow up in the same household, the same set of parents, and yet be so different in the way that you think and act, the things you enjoy doing.
Yeah, so true.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Jessica and I have moved around quite a bit in our marriage. Yeah. My sister and her family have moved quite a bit, and so we just don't get an opportunity to see each other much anymore.
You've got your friends, you're playing basketball, and you're about to graduate. You're trying to think, what do I need to be doing? Where are you thinking? How did you come to a decision?
Well, my decision was centered around basketball, kind of. I was initially planning to go to Lipscomb and walk on and play basketball.
Wow.
So when I was in high school, they had just won the NAIA tournament. They were national champs. I'd been to camps there several years. I knew the coaches. I knew a lot of the players. It was cool.
This was a dream school for you at this point.
Oh, it was. I mean, they had connections with other schools where I met some really big name basketball players of the day, and guys that have gone on to play in the NBA now.
Wow.
It was really cool, and I was highly motivated to do that. In April of my senior year, I had kind of a wholesale change in who I was, basically, and part of that was my high school chorus teacher went to Harding, and she said, "Hey, I'm going to take another couple of folks that were seniors, and we're going to go to Harding for a college visit. Why don't you come with us?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to Lipscomb."
Wow.
And then I thought, extra day out of school, I'll go to Harding.
Yeah.
So I went to Harding and just hung out on the front lawn. I remember playing 2-man volleyball with people up there, sitting out there just listening to people play the guitar on the front lawn, sitting in the swings. And I just thought, why? I'm going to Harding.
Yeah.
And so I came back from that weekend and I told my dad, I want to go to Harding. And he's like, well, you're already going to Lipscomb, the discipline, the regiment that, this is how you're done. This is it. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. And I remember actually negotiating with my dad that I would pay any kind of penalties or any kind of money he didn't get back from, deposits that were made and that kind of thing. I mean, that's how committed I became to want to go to Harding.
Did you know you wanted to do what you are doing now the whole time, or what did you go to study for?
I knew exactly that I did not want to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I did not want to be an accountant at all.
Oh, wow.
My dad was an accountant, and growing up, I would always help him in his office. And I remember so many hours I would spend replacing pages of the Internal Revenue Code and binders that he had. And I just thought, this is insane that anybody would want to do this and know this much stuff and get into all of this. It took me a while to come around to it because here's how I came to where I was at Harding. I said, I don't want to be a teacher, kind of like Jessica. Mm-hmm. And so that kept me out of, in my mind, that kept me out of the School of Science, kept me out of history. It kept me out of education. I didn't want to be a nurse because at the time I would have been the only guy in that program.
Yeah, it wasn't very popular at that time.
There weren't many. No, not at Harding. And so that kind of left me with just either the College of Bible or the School of Business. And so I thought, I said, I just don't think I knew enough about the Bible. So I went School of Business, and I didn't want to be an accountant. And so that left me with either being in sales, didn't want to do that, economics. That just sounded like more school. Mm-hmm. And so I just went general business for a long time. And it wasn't until one of our choir trips many years later where we were going through Dallas, and we were staying with a family in Dallas, and he happened to be a partner at KPMG in Dallas, and I was doing laundry at his house, and he and I just started talking about things overnight, as we would do, and I just realized there's so much more to accounting than just what my dad did.
Yeah.
And so I came back and switched my major, and here we are today.
Jessica, how do you remember meeting Tony? Because you ended up at Harding after Michigan Christian.
Correct.
You're both at Harding now.
I knew who Tony was before I met him. His father was very ill our first semester of our junior year. And I had come into the music department and was music education major and was in concert choir, and Tony was in concert choir. And we were praying for him and another one of our choir mates whose both of their fathers were very ill and would subsequently pass away that fall. And so I knew his name, but I didn't know him. Funny fact, honestly, was I was very, very depressed that semester because transferring is just hard. Yeah. Moving is hard. Graduating from college and becoming a young adult is hard. Like that, all those transitions are really hard times. Yeah. And I could not find my people. And I don't mean that I was looking for something in particular, but I just had a hard time finding a community. And I don't remember exactly how my mother said it, but she was, and it could have been that she was honestly like, I am so tired of hearing Jessica complain. Just do something nice for somebody. And it was basically get out of your own head. Stop thinking about what you're sad about and do something for someone else. And so I started thinking about what I would feel like as a transfer student and also going through what these two people in choir were going through. Yeah. And it sounds really nice, but I need you to know that it was not from the most selfless place. But I started writing notes to these two choir people.
Yeah.
One of them was Tony.
Well, you weren't romantically seeking him out with these
And I
notes.
didn't know who he was.
So that's
at
a
the
beautiful
time.
thing. You're just being a friend.
I would write a scripture or a song lyric and write a friend in Christ, and then just no name, because I thought I don't want them to be like weirded out or whatever at the time. None of that resonated when I did meet him in person, which wasn't really until, I mean, we did have an interaction early on, but I didn't know it was him. I met him on our tour, I guess that spring or winter, to Disney World. We had a choir trip that we went to Disney, and we were walking around Epcot Center, and I was with a couple guys that were music majors with me who, you know, they're just joking around and shoving us around. And Tony was the one guy holding the door and actually engaging in conversation. And he's very good at listening, and he was very good then. And he wanted, I felt heard, even as we're walking around Epcot and talking about nothing. So that was sort of the first indicator of, I need to pay attention to this person.
Yeah.
So
You remember all this, Tony?
I did not know that. I think it was after we were married that I found out that all those letters that she wrote were from her.
Oh, wow.
I'd kind of forgotten about him too until something came up later. So
Somehow it came up, and I was like, wait, that was you? I mean, it was, but I will say it was, that was really nice. I was glad to hear that was the woman that I asked to marry me, because I always, what drew me to Jessica was her gigantic heart for people. And she was friends to people at Harding that I never would have thought I would want to be friends with.
For those of you who don't know, we were all in choir together at Harding. I was also a student at Harding. I remember this time, and I remember also praying for your father in choir, because I was also in that choir. And this was a really difficult time for you. I do remember this specifically. What do you remember about that? And I mean, that was really hard. There's a lot of people that lose a loved one early, a father or a mother early.
Yeah, that, you know, it's funny, because as Jessica was starting to talk about it, I feel myself getting a little emotional, but that was hard. But I do remember always feeling like choir was a place I could go and feel like I didn't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Or I didn't have to be sad, you know. In fact, it became a place where I would find encouragement, because I was not a music major, and I've told Jessica this and others probably. I felt kind of like I was part of the social outreach program of the choir. I mean, who lets an accountant into a choir, you know, especially one that, in my opinion, was as good as that one was. I would go there and I would listen to the music and the songs we would sing, and I just felt better after being there. But I do remember there's a lot of connection between my father's passing and choir, beyond just you guys praying for me. When my dad actually did pass, I had just visited him. He was at Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville, and I had come home. I had come back to Harding, and by the time I got to Harding, almost as soon as I got in, I hadn't even unpacked anything. Dr. Sharon came to the dorm room. The director of the concert choir. And I thought, that's odd. What's he doing here? And then he came in and he goes, Tony, I need to tell you your dad's died. And so they're just, you know, my roommates and my suite mates were there, and we were just shocked because I had just seen him hours ago. Yeah. So that was kind of important, that it was Dr. Sharon that told me about my dad. Then, you know, immediately after that, I go home and I'm helping my mom, my sister, and we're trying to take care of things. And when it comes time to get to the church building for his funeral, we pull in and I see a massive bus there. And I don't even remember if you two were on it.
I was not.
But
I don't think I was either.
Dr. Sharon brought the concert choir to my dad's funeral. And afterwards, I remember being in my house with this gigantic bus out front of my house, and just feeling that love and support from the choir.
There are so many times, even in that situation, where I come back to, if you have a thought about someone, even like a flicker of, I wonder how Tony's doing.
Yeah.
That you have the choice in that moment to act or not. And acting is always going to give space for God to do work through you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you guys are dating. You decide to get married. I mean, was this before graduation, after graduation? Wait, how did that?
You want to talk about that?
the engagement was before
This is something we don't want to talk about.
No.
Okay.
It was before my graduation, after his graduation.
Okay. Yeah.
There was a little bit of ambiguity.
Yeah.
I don't know how your engagement story with Amy was, but, we did not live in the time where I was expecting to be proposed to. There
Right.
it wasn't pre-planned. I didn't have a party already happening. I didn't think, well, I want a photographer. That it was.
Nobody was hiding in the woods.
No, you're just kind of hoping and waiting. And I think we've already talked about it. We've talked about marriage, and he had graduated. So then there was this, looming, is he going to ask? I mean, I think he's going to ask, but he's not here every day. And interestingly enough, it happened at a choir banquet, which a choir banquet was, not a choir banquet. It wasn't, it was a club banquet that was our first date.
Club
banquet was our first date, but it was at the same place. The same venue as our first date was the choir banquet. And he came back as my date and proposed. So we were engaged in February before I graduated.
Before you graduated.
And then married shortly after.
Okay. What are some of your favorite memories from being married, like newlyweds? You're learning how to be together. What do you remember about that time?
It was a blur at first, because when we got back from our honeymoon, and the next day I started grad school. So it was very busy, and I was working full time, leaving my poor wife at home for, to try to figure things out. And I had moved her to a town where she did not know many people.
Where was this?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah. This is back in the 1900s, so there was no cell phones.
There was no cell phones back then. The cars were even old.
Yeah.
But it was... what I will never forget was that first night when I went to my class for the first time as a married man. And I came home. I got home 10:30, 11 o'clock. And my beautiful wife had prepared a dinner for us. We had candlelight dinner of pasta at almost 11 o'clock at night.
I love that.
She probably doesn't even remember that.
I don't.
But I do recall that. I remember that specifically because I was thinking, I'm not that hungry right now, but I don't want to hurt her feelings because she went through a lot of work for it. And because we didn't know a lot of people, we dove in to the church, and we developed some good friends, the McCrady's, the McGreevy's, the Duncans even, that we became good friends. We were a little bit on the younger side of those couples, so they all had kids long before we did. But that was it was really kind of special.
We didn't have a support system around us like you would maybe if you're close to family, but it helped us sort of, kind of forged us in fire a little bit. You have to push through and really communicate. And I learned quickly that taking a spiral bound notebook with a list of grievances to a date night when you want to tell your husband, these are all the things I'm not really happy with our communication, doesn't go well. Everyone learn.
Notebook. It was almost full.
No, I'm not done. I'm just telling everyone that's not a good idea.
I mean, you're trying to relate
from me.
You're trying to relate to an accountant. It seems like it would make sense.
It does.
Right? Yeah.
It does. It wasn't a spreadsheet. Maybe if it had been a spreadsheet, it might have worked better. For the record, he never returned any of that in kind. But just learning those things and being willing to push through and go, no, you do not talk to me that is not how we're going to work this out, Yeah. But always having conversations.
So we really had to work through any kind of differences that we had because we were all we had.
Yeah.
And we needed each other, but we may have had some things to work through, but
Yeah, for sure.
we both recognized we needed each other, and that's what we needed to do. So
You are you're a music teacher now. You also aren't just a teacher, though. You've been involved in musicals here in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
Tell us about that. How did you get involved in that, and what have you done?
Well, I need to go back for a minute to Nashville because when I graduated, I thought, you know what, I'm going to get involved in professional theater. And I went to one professional audition and I called ahead to say, do I need to dance? So they said, no, we definitely have non-dancing roles. Come and audition. And I remember going into the audition and singing for them and them seeming real excited that I was there and looking at me and saying, did we see you dance? And I was like, oh, no, I'm here for the non-dancing roles. And they're like, oh, well, you still have to dance. And I was like, I almost wanted to be like, no, I don't. And they said, no, just go out there. The choreographer, it's fine. We just need to see you dance. We know why you're here. Well, again, I didn't train to become a musical theater person because that was a pivot. So I didn't understand how things worked. And I go out there to a sea of what felt like synchronized swimming dancers, all in the same uniform. And this foreign language is spoken, step, hop, ball chain, and they all move in unison. And I had no idea what was going on. So I needed to go back to that little point to encourage people who have something they have a dream about, because at that point I just shut the door. I slammed it. I locked it myself. I'm like, this is not something. And I realized too, I had multiple dreams in my life. One of them was to raise a family and to have a Christian home. That was a huge dream for me, to be able to raise my children and have a healthy marriage and a thriving Christian existence in my home and in my church life. Moved to Oklahoma City. And it's not that there weren't opportunities in other places. I did some community theater in Nashville. It was fine. I didn't love it. Moved back to Ohio. We were in Houston. There was just never an opportunity. And then came here, and it was actually someone at Memorial Road who knew about an opportunity with Lyric and said, why don't you just audition? And I did. And I just kind of revived a spark of something that, even though I didn't have success right away, and I even told this story recently in my classes at school where I got laughed at in an audition and I wasn't trying to be funny and it wasn't a funny role. And so it wasn't that I got it right all the time, and it wasn't easy, but I thought, no, this is a place I want to keep knocking on this door. And I do kind of say that I wore them down. And I discovered, too, that sometimes you want to be the star of something more than you want that thing. And it's nice to recognize when you really just love the opportunity, and it doesn't have to be the biggest part.
Tony, you basketball, you were talking about you had other dreams of family. I think there are a lot of people, and including myself, I think, that kind of hold on to dreams for a while, and then at some point you have to let them go and realize there are other things maybe that God has for you. And that's hard to do. I mean, it just is. And I've seen even young adults that hold on to dreams. They're struggling trying to release those, and it's just not an easy thing to do. Yeah.
One of our children actually used this comment to us that said, he said, I think maybe I wasn't paying attention. I think the reason this door keeps closing for me is because I haven't been paying attention to the one that God has been holding open.
Yeah, that's so good.
And it was a pivot, like you're not even paying attention.
Yeah. And
I would not go back and be in any musicals in the 20-year period between when we first got married and when we moved to Oklahoma. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't trade anything to have had more time in a spotlight or even any affiliation, not because I didn't treasure it and I don't value it, but I got to live out a dream that he had waiting for me.
I worked for Chesapeake Energy when we first moved here, and I had survived so many rounds of layoffs. It finally caught up with me, and it was one of the best things that could have happened to me, I think. But it was really cool, except because I was off work for about 5 months, and the cool part about it was that I had a job offer each month that I was there, so we could have taken something, but a lot of them were in Florida or they're in Tulsa, or it's a significant pay cut that would have made it harder on our family. And so there are just all these different things, different reasons that I turned them all down. And I remember getting to the last one that I had, I turned it down, and I didn't have anything else in the pipeline. I had no other leads, no other contacts, no other trails to follow. It was scary at that point. Before that, I always knew somebody somewhere that was looking for somebody like me. And I remember having a conversation with the boys, just saying, you know, all those times you read in the Bible when someone is trusting in God, or they're putting all their faith in God, or that's all they had. I'm like, guys, that's where we are. I don't have any other options, any other hope, but God is going to see us through, because he always has.
Yeah.
And that was powerful, I think.
Yeah.
It was for me. Yeah. I hope it was for my boys.
Yeah. I mean, your whole family. Yeah. It's good leadership. I appreciate it. I mean, that's good parenting to help them think through those things, and including those your kids in your decisions like that is not always the easiest thing to do. So you came to Memorial Road. How have you guys been involved at Memorial? I know obviously now you're elder. What has been your involvement at Memorial so far?
We started out intimidated being here because of the size, and not being exactly sure where we fit in. But it centered around our children, I think. When the boys got old enough to be in the youth group, I remember having a conversation with Jessica where we said, we need to know who our children know. We want to be we want to know who their friends are. We want to have an influence on them as much as we have an influence on our kids. So we started out. How did we start out?
After the first couple years, we went into youth group. We were not right away because Jackson wasn't in the youth group when we first got here.
Well, yeah, that started in 6th grade when Jackson was in the Timothy class.
We did some Journeyland. We were journeymen. We were in an adult class. We were in New Beginnings for a little while. And then...
Dan won't remember us, but...
we were... Then once our oldest was in youth group, we jumped into middle school. Honestly, we pivoted out of youth ministry into we were trying to figure out what we were going to do next. Jason Garner or Brent Scott, one of the two, and they said, hey, we want to meet with you guys before church on Wednesday. And I remember talking to Jessica about that too, and just saying, okay, they're about to ask us to start helping out in the campus ministry. And I said, our answer is no. We're not going to do that, some space,
because we had been with the boys since 6th grade. And that was where they started talking to us about becoming an elder and an elder's wife. And
and then we landed in young adult. And they assigned us.
Yeah, they assigned us to the young adults, and that has been absolutely amazing. Right now, I cannot imagine serving anywhere else.
Yeah. You guys jumped in, and there were 2 classes, and then we made Dwell, so then there were 3 classes, and you took the launch class. You stayed in launch.
We were trying to get to know a lot of people. We knew we were going to be in one of the classes, one of the 3 classes. We weren't sure which one. So we were going to the 2 at the time, Reach and Launch, trying to get to know people. We started having conversations, and then at the time, Greg Schaefer and I were talking, and he said, you know, Tony, Carrie and I would really like to take the new class and go with those folks that we already know, that already know us, so that we can help a new class stand on its own. Launch is kind of it's already got legs. And so that way there's not 2 new things in every place.
I kind of love being a non-traditional young adult. You know, my age group would say I need to be somewhere else, but there's something really lovely about, you know, they kind of have to have me in there. And it's not going to be weird because I'm there, but I really love it. There have been so many times in our own adult lives where we've had to transition, and I don't think I realized those muscles that we built when we didn't want to build them are exactly what's happening in this phase of life. And it honestly continues to happen in our lives all along, but we don't want to accept it. We just don't want change. We never really want change. Tony and I are now empty nesters, and that's a new transition, and it's just you either embrace it and you do what needs to be done, or you just keep putting your foot on the brake, trying to stop the change. So being in a class with this generation that's not my own, and getting to see them do things really well. And there's, this sort of stigma of older generations thinking there's a certain way to do things, and younger generations maybe not having the wisdom. And while there may be some truth in those things, because lived experiences do give you wisdom, I just think I've been learning so many things from watching them walk through what it's like to be a young adult in 2026.
Yeah, the three of us are very fortunate. We get to be in the young adult world. I mean, they've let us in, and it's an honor. It's a privilege to walk alongside them. Yeah, yeah. And I'm so glad you guys are part of the ministry. I'm so glad you're part of the launch class.
We are too.
If you're listening and you haven't met Tony and Jessica yet, please go to the launch class on Sunday. They will probably greet you at the door. But look for them, and they would love to get to know you. Any final thought you have for the young adults?
Thanks for letting us in.
And there's always room for you in our space. Don't be intimidated if you don't know people. Don't be intimidated if you didn't go to a university that's in the area. Just, if you love Jesus or want to know him, we want to get to know you.
Yeah, that's such a good word. Guys, thanks so much for being on the Young Adult World podcast and letting us get to know you guys deeper.
Thanks for having
Lee.
us.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. I hope this conversation was meaningful to you. Come find us on Instagram. Our profile is Young Adult World Podcast. Tell us what you connected with during our podcast today. This podcast is part of the Young Adult Ministry at the Memorial Road Church of Christ in Edmond, Oklahoma. Come join us sometime. There's plenty of room for everyone. If you want to reach out to us, don't hesitate to email us at youngadultworldpodcast@gmail.com. And we are so grateful for Jacob Staten. Jacob is a young adult who edits this podcast for us and keeps this thing going. So thanks, Jacob. Okay, guys, see you next time for another Young Adult World conversation.